Otto Skorzeny, a figure shrouded in myth and contradiction, was branded as a henchman, assassin, commando, spy, double agent, and mercenary. What was the true story of this enigmatic man who became known as the most dangerous man in Europe? Born into a middle-class family in Vienna, Austria on June 12, 1908, Skorzeny distinguished himself in scientific topics as a student. He later enrolled at the University of Vienna to study engineering. His great passion, however, was fencing. During a university fencing match, he received the prominent scar on his cheek, known in German as a Schmiss, a coveted mark of bravery among German and Austrian youth at the time. Operation Knight's Leap followed, aiming to capture Tito. Again, Skorzeny and his commandos attacked by gliders, targeting Tito's mountain headquarters, while conventional forces engaged partisans. Fierce resistance stalled the pincer movement, allowing Tito to escape. Skorzeny finally had his moment to shine after the attempted bombing of Hitler on July 20, 1944. In his memoirs, he claimed a pivotal role in restoring order in Berlin, where conspirators had launched Plan Valkyrie to overthrow the regime. Skorzeny infiltrated the conspirators' base, rescinded the Valkyrie order, which had tricked German troops into arresting loyal Nazi officials, and helped dissipate confusion, restore communications to Führer headquarters, and prevent a possible civil war. He took charge of Wehrmacht administration until normalcy returned, once again delighting Hitler. In October 1944, Hitler dispatched Skorzeny to Budapest to lead Operation Panzerfaust, also known as Operation Mickey Mouse. Displeased with Hungarian leader Admiral Horthy, an uneasy ally against the Soviet Union who was secretly pro-American and had refused to deport his Jewish population, Hitler had Skorzeny sent to exact punishment. Skorzeny and his commandos stormed the presidential palace, seized Horthy's son, rolled him into a carpet, and kidnapped him. Horthy was forced to negotiate and eventually stand down, replaced by a puppet government under the staunchly anti-Semitic Arrow Cross Party. Over the following 56 days, an estimated 320,000 Hungarian Jews were sent to gas chambers, and another 100,000 died from starvation or disease. In December 1944, Skorzeny launched his most infamous mission, Operation Greif Griffin, during the Battle of the Bulge, Germany's last Western offensive. The goal was to capture key bridges over the Meuse River. Skorzeny's ingenious plan involved selecting English-fluent commandos, dressing them in American uniforms, and sending them behind enemy lines in Belgium to spread panic and confusion. His men cut communication wires, issued fake orders, and turned around road signs, leading to widespread paranoia among American GIs. Some fired on each other, while others grilled comrades about American popular culture to identify German agents. Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery famously refused to show his ID, had his car tires shot out, and was restrained until his identity was confirmed. Skorzeny also spread the false rumor that the real aim was the assassination of General Eisenhower, then headquartered in Paris. German agents captured by Americans confessed to this plot, resulting in Eisenhower being placed under virtual arrest for his own protection. Griffin ultimately failed, with many Germans easily identified and shot as spies. As the Reich crumbled, Skorzeny's final involvement was with Operation Werewolf, a resistance movement composed mostly of Hitler Youth members trained in guerrilla tactics to oppose Allied occupation. This was primarily a desperate propaganda ruse by Goebbels to boost morale, but Skorzeny hijacked the plan, using this small force to aid escaping Nazi high officials. The Soviet NKVD, likely overestimating Werewolf's size and importance, killed roughly 5,000 boys, aged 15 to 17, for suspected guerrilla activity. Days after Hitler's suicide, Skorzeny surrendered to the Americans. Though highly decorated and respected, his directive for his men to wear American uniforms earned him a war crime charge, leading to a trial in 1947. He narrowly escaped execution when British SOE operatives confirmed they wore German uniforms during the war. However, before he could be prosecuted on other charges, Skorzeny escaped from a POW camp with the help of 2 ex-SS men disguised as American military police. He later claimed this escape was part of a plan orchestrated by the OSS, the CIA's predecessor, offering him freedom in exchange for his services, a claim still debated. Skorzeny first hid in Bavaria, then Salzburg, finally settling in Spain, where he cooperated with Francisco Franco's military and intelligence services. He was denazified in absentia by a German court in 1952, but remained a person of interest for the famed Austrian Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal. Nonetheless, he led an open life, establishing an engineering firm, an import-export business, and a mercenary security company. He also founded a neo-Nazi group called SEDADE, the Spanish Circle of Friends of Europe, and was rumored to have smuggled ex-Nazis to South America, particularly Argentina, where he briefly served as a military advisor to Juan Perón and even as bodyguard to Evita, with whispers of an affair between them. In the late 1950s, he became fixated on gaining entry to the UK, which may explain his purchase of a farm in County Kildare, Ireland in 1959. He was granted temporary visas to Ireland, but expressed indignation at the continuous refusal of British authorities to allow him entry to the UK. Newspaper reports in the 1960s suggested his Irish farm was a hiding place for fleeing Nazis, though no evidence ever substantiated this claim. Perhaps the most puzzling chapter in Skorzeny's life involves his association with the Mossad, Israeli intelligence. As an escaped former SS officer who indirectly contributed to the deportation of Hungarian Jews, Skorzeny knew he topped Simon Wiesenthal's list of Nazi criminals. Thus, he was astonished when Mossad agents came to recruit him in early 1962. While having drinks in Madrid with his wife, Ilse, they befriended a younger German couple who appeared to have been robbed. The two couples continued drinking and flirting, eventually returning to the Skorzeny's villa. As things escalated, Skorzeny pulled a gun, confronting them. "I know who you are, and I know why you are here. You are Mossad, and you've come here to kill me," the man replied. "If we had come to kill you, you would have been dead weeks ago." The operatives offered Skorzeny a deal, his services in exchange for his removal from Wiesenthal's list. Skorzeny, uninterested in money, agreed to the Mossad's terms. He was flown to Tel Aviv, where he met Mossad agent Joe Renan, a fellow Viennese Jew who had lost his entire family in the Holocaust. Renan took the ex-SS officer to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum, observing that Skorzeny appeared respectful. Skorzeny's mission was to thwart Egypt's military rocket program, led by German scientist Heinz Krug, formerly associated with Werner von Braun. To seal the deal, Skorzeny was shown a forged letter from Wiesenthal, purportedly accepting his removal from the list of Nazi criminals. In 1931, as Nazism gained momentum across Europe, Skorzeny joined the Austrian Nazi Party, quickly rising through the ranks of the local paramilitary SA Brownshirts. Clever, ambitious, and physically imposing at 6 feet 4 inches 1.93 meters, he was a valued member. He earned his engineering degree and began working as a civil engineer. Skorzeny delivered. He flew to Egypt, identified all German scientists working on the program, and unmasked several European companies secretly selling rocket components to the Egyptians. He conducted an intimidation campaign against the scientists and mailed explosive packages prepared by Mossad, killing 5 Egyptian technicians. One day in 1962, while in Madrid, Skorzeny received a call from Heinz Krug, the lead scientist, who was terrified and seeking Skorzeny's help and protection. Skorzeny arranged to meet Krug in Munich, driving him out of town in a white Mercedes, reassuring him that bodyguards were awaiting them. As they stepped out of the car into the woods, Skorzeny shot Krug. 3 Mossad agents then dissolved the body in acid. Skorzeny's job was done without a penny earned. Unbeknownst to him, he remained on Wiesenthal's list but was now safe from the Mossad. Another intelligence service famously linked to Otto Skorzeny was the CIA. Documents from the CIA's Freedom of Information Act FOIA search engine reveal a brief memo from 1961 stating Skorzeny had a plan to kidnap Fidel Castro, approved by CIA Director Allen Dulles but vetoed by JFK. This memo, however, quotes an interview Skorzeny gave to a Peruvian newspaper in 1966, raising questions about its veracity given his flair for self-publicity. Deeper digging reveals more. On January 26, 1951, a report from John J. McCloy, American High Commissioner for Occupied Germany, to the Secretary of State indicated Chancellor Adenauer's concern about rumors of Skorzeny training the Spanish military with covert U.S. support. McCloy was unaware of such a scheme and admitted it was worrying. The CIA knew Skorzeny was in Spain from a September 21, 1949, letter from FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover stating Skorzeny had been sighted working in Spain with a group of Nazis with the blessings of Franco. By April 1951, the CIA was monitoring Skorzeny's activities in Madrid, specifically internal feuding among former Nazi officers, fearing public exposure. A memo reads, "View possibility unfavorable publicity break as result Skorzeny's maneuvering. Consider important we clarify our interests and any U.S. connections fully. Can you explain claims Skorzeny connected with or supported by U.S. Colonel Thompson or Stimson? View categorical denial. The agent questioned whether the CIC Counterintelligence Corps, a Cold War-era secret service within the U.S. Army, was behind Skorzeny. In the 1960s, the CIA continued to monitor Skorzeny's relationship with Uphill, a likely codename for an organization. One report noted that the chief of Uphill warned that U.S. support for Skorzeny would embarrass the White House, echoing Adenauer's earlier concern. This suggests some U.S. agency, possibly the CIC, had contact with him, and German authorities had warned the U.S. to be cautious. Further documents complicate matters. One, signed by Heckenschütze Sniper, describes a secret organization called Hacke, created by Martin Bormann, Hitler's secretary, in late 1943. Exclusive to only 35 members, and so secretive even Himmler was unaware of it, Hacke aimed to ensure the survival of Nazi officials after defeat. It amassed $500 million from concentration camp victims and established hideouts in Spain, Portugal, Italy, Japan, and Argentina. The twist: Soviet intelligence had infiltrated this network, allegedly by blackmailing Bormann with exposure to Himmler. Hacke remained active post-war, but then another twist emerges. One of the dark and dangerous KGB figures in Hacke is the famous SS Colonel Skorzeny, who presently lives in Madrid and also works for the Spanish 1S intelligence service. Skorzeny was under active development by Abakumo as early as 1942. Skorzeny was finally recruited as a collaborator of Abakumo in the middle of 1944, referring to a Soviet intelligence general. Abakumo's plan was to exploit ex-Nazi officials and agents settled in the Americas. The document's author admitted uncertainty about Abakumo's success, seeking further clues to confirm Skorzeny's allegiance to the KGB, including his closeness to another ex-Nazi operative, Karl Rudel. The two had been tasked by the Vatican with a secret mission to smuggle a Hungarian cardinal out of prison. Rudel, an agent of Abakumo, intended to hijack the escape to have the cardinal shot, but suspected he too would be killed while Skorzeny survived, and thus aborted the operation. To recap, from the 1940s to the 1960s, Otto Skorzeny was allegedly a commando for the Nazi security services, a possible double agent for the Soviets, a member of the neo-Nazi ring Hacke, an agent of Franco's intelligence, a hitman for the Mossad, a possible informant to the US CIC, and an operative for the Vatican. The initial question, did Skorzeny work for the CIA, seems almost irrelevant. His calendar was likely too full to fit them in. In his later years, Otto Skorzeny fell ill with lung cancer, dying in Madrid on July 5, 1975, at the age of 67. He had two funerals, one in Madrid and another at his family plot in Vienna. At both, he received full Nazi honors, with veterans giving Nazi salutes and singing Hitler's favorite songs. Among those present, one man stood apart. He did not join the Nazi nostalgic paraphernalia, but offered a silent salute to a fellow secret agent and fighter, someone he had grown up hating but had learned to respect. That man was Mossad agent Joe Renan. This strange image of an Israeli spy at a Nazi funeral perfectly encapsulates the career of a man who, though clearly a follower of Nazi ideology, was ultimately loyal only to himself. Austria's 1938 Anschluss with Germany paved the way for Skorzeny's military career. When World War II erupted in 1939, he applied to join the Wehrmacht, but his application to the Luftwaffe was denied due to his height and age 31. Instead, he joined the SS, becoming an officer cadet in the Leibstandarte, Hitler's personal bodyguard regiment. By 1940, as a second lieutenant in the Waffen-SS, his engineering skills proved invaluable when he designed special ramps for loading tanks onto ships. He also demonstrated courage in combat in Holland, France, and the Balkans, where he was decorated after capturing a large Yugoslav force and promoted to first lieutenant. Skorzeny was transferred to the Eastern Front with the 2nd SS Panzer Division Das Reich after Operation Barbarossa launched in June 1941. He participated in the unsuccessful siege of Moscow and in December 1942, now a captain, sustained a head wound from shrapnel. Awarded the Iron Cross for bravery, Skorzeny was sent home to Vienna to recuperate. During his recovery, he became deeply fascinated by commando operations, devouring books on the subject and transforming these ideas into plans for unconventional warfare, which he submitted to higher headquarters. His concepts soon reached Ernst Kaltenbrunner, the new head of Reich Security Services, and were then passed to General Schellenberg, head of the SS Foreign Intelligence Service. Impressed after meeting Skorzeny, Schellenberg appointed him commander of the newly created Waffen-Sonderverband ZBV Friedenthal, an SS unit dedicated to special operations. His career as a commando leader had just begun. Skorzeny and his unit embarked on their first mission, Operation François, in the summer of 1943. The plan was to organize the nomadic Qashqai people in Iran into an armed guerrilla force to support the German war effort. Skorzeny's paratroopers were tasked with disrupting Allied and Soviet supply lines and turning the local population against the Allied presence. He parachuted into northern Iran laden with gold and explosives, intending to bribe tribal elders for support. However, the operation proved a failure. A fellow agent, Paul Ernst Fackenheim, noted that as soon as their gold ran out, the Persians sold them to the British. Skorzeny's next mission, Operation Oak, would be his most famous and spectacular success, the rescue of Benito Mussolini, who had been imprisoned after the monarchist coup in July 1943. After a relentless search, Skorzeny finally tracked Mussolini to the Campo Imperatore Hotel, a remote and fortified resort on the Gran Sasso mountain in central Italy, accessible only by funicular. With Luftwaffe General Kurt Student and Major Otto Harold Moors, a paratrooper battalion commander, Skorzeny devised a daring plan involving gliders. On September 12, 1943, gliders approached the hotel. Skorzeny's own glider almost crashed when he realized what he thought was a patch of grass was a rocky incline, but he emerged unharmed. Within 12 minutes, Skorzeny had located Mussolini, and remarkably, not a single shot had been fired. A delighted Hitler awarded Skorzeny the Knight's Cross, making him the Führer's favorite commando and earning him the Allied moniker the most dangerous man in Europe, though propaganda chief Dr. Goebbels may have been the first to coin the title. Propaganda coverage, however, downplayed the significant contributions of General Student and Major Moors, as Skorzeny ensured he was prominently featured escorting Mussolini to the getaway plane for the cameras. Skorzeny's stroke of genius, securing the cooperation of General Saletti of the Carabinieri military police, who ordered his heavily armed men to stand down, was crucial to the bloodless raid. Footage also showed Italian guards smiling with Mussolini and Skorzeny, hinting at their true loyalties. Skorzeny's next high-stakes assignment was Operation Long Jump in November 1943, an ambitious plot to kill or kidnap the Allied Big Three leaders, Stalin, Churchill, and Roosevelt, during their strategic conference in Tehran, Iran. A first group of 6 German operatives landed in Qom, then traveled to Tehran by camel. Skorzeny was meant to join them with a second team of assassins. However, the plot was foiled when an SS officer, von Ortel, drunkenly revealed details to a Soviet intelligence officer posing as a Wehrmacht lieutenant in Copenhagen. Alerted, Roosevelt and Churchill were kept safe at the Soviet embassy. The NKVD seized the 6 German commandos, forcing them to radio Skorzeny's team that the operation had failed. Some sources, however, claim this plot was an NKVD ruse to keep Western leaders within the bugged Soviet embassy.